But whenever I brought this message a number of weeks ago, I said last time I'd intended to bring one message, but it went to 2 and it went to 3. And then I'm going to go to part 4, the church and the world. So far, we've talked about the fact that although the world and the church are at odds with each other, and that although the world in many respects hates the church, we made the point, and we continue to make the same point, that the church was never called and is not called to hate the world in response. We're not called to hate the world. We're not called to compete with the world. We're not called to mimic the world. The church is called to reach the world. If you want to know what we're called to do as a church, as the church of Jesus Christ, you just need to read the Gospels. You need to read what Jesus Christ himself said. And you will see that the church is called to reach the world. That's all we're called to do. We looked at how best we can do this. And we do this best by working in partnership with each other and by working in partnership with the church locally, nationally, and also globally. Working in partnership with each other and, of course, with Christ himself, who is the master builder. Part 3 of this message, I talked about the different attitude that exists in the world and within the church towards life itself. We saw that while the world offers a way out when there are issues and circumstances and problems that force people into depression and into periods of deep darkness, that the world offers a way out, whereas the church offers a way through. The world says end it at times, but the church says, no, you can change it. Things can be better. And while the devil still aims to seek, or still seeks to steal, kill, and destroy, that Jesus Christ still offers life and offers life in abundance and life eternal. And I made the point that if you're pulling down rather than building up, then you're doing the work of the thief. If you're stealing not just property, but you're stealing people's peace and people's joy, you're doing the work of the thief. If you're killing, not just killing humans, but killing people's dreams and ambitions and goals, and what God has called and set them apart to do, then you're doing the work of the thief. This morning, I want to look at what the church and what the world thinks of Jesus. In Matthew chapter 16 and verse 18, Jesus said, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And those are words that we can quote, we can say them in prayer and so on, and we delight and we know we're encouraged by the fact that Jesus Christ is building his church. And that nothing will stop the church from advancing. That even hell itself will not prevail. The gates of hell, the powers, the authorities of hell will not prevail against the church. And we quote that verse and are delighted to do so. But Jesus spoke those words immediately after he asked the question. And the question was, who do men say that I am? Who do people say that I am? What's the world say about me? What's the world's opinion about me? Who do men say that I am? What's the world saying about me? And then it was after that when Peter responded, we'll look at this response in just a moment, that Jesus uttered those words. You see, friends, Jesus recognized that the world had an opinion about him. How could it not? For all the stuff that he was doing. I mean, in some respects, Jesus was a superstar back then. Oh, we know he's the Son of God. Please don't put me down for that. But the people didn't have the televisions to run to and Facebook to run to and so on. Concerts and conferences to run to. So when someone came along, when the prophets came along, when John the Baptist came along, they became the center of attention, and Jesus was the center of attention. And people would follow him in their masses, in their thousands. And so he knew that the world had an opinion of him. But that was not why Jesus asked this question. This is not about Jesus trying to find out what the world thought of him, what the world was saying about him, what people were saying about him. No, this was more about Jesus getting the disciples to acknowledge him, who he was, who he is. Not only to acknowledge it within the little group, privately and so on, and privately to him, but for them to acknowledge it and to declare it publicly. This was more about the disciples, what they thought of him. And so when Jesus asked the question, who do men say that I am? What's the world saying about me? What are people thinking about me? Then Peter responded. And Peter said, some say you're Jeremiah, some say you're Elijah, some even say you're John the Baptist, even though John baptized you in the River Jordan. Some say you're John the Baptist, some say you're one of the other prophets. And that's what the world was saying about him. That's what people were saying about him. But then Jesus said, okay, but what do you say about me? Who do you think that I am? Who do you say I am? You see, friends, Jesus was more interested in what the disciples thought of him than what the world thought of him. And Jesus is more interested today in what we think of him, how we acknowledge him, how we declare him, how we present him to those around us. He's more interested in what we think of him, more interested in who we declare him to be and what we say of him. Larry Norman wrote an amazing song. Danny, you remember Larry Norman's song? I'm not going to get you up and sing it. You remember it, yeah? The Outlaw, you know them all. You're here tonight, you're going to sing Larry. I'm going to challenge you tonight. Hey, if you haven't heard this man singing, I'm challenging him now. In fact, if I thought he could do it right now and a bit too much on him, I'd have him up on this platform now singing this Larry Norman song. So maybe he can do it tonight. But that's worth coming. And tonight we'll have a chat about the Jesus March and all that stuff. We'll get people to talk about that tonight and so on. But Danny, there's one for you for tonight. But Larry Norman, I mean, this guy was almost like a freak of nature. He really was. But an incredible musician, incredible singer. And those of us back in the 70s and the 80s and so on, we loved this guy. He opened up music and singing in church that enabled a new generation to step forward and so on. And even Danny back in the day with his long curly hair and whatever the case was back then. But he wrote this song called Outlaw. And it was about Jesus. And let me give you the words of it. I'm not going to sing it, but I'll give you the words of it. Some say he was an outlaw, that he roamed across the land with a band of unschooled ruffians and a few old fishermen. No one knew just where he came from or exactly what he had done, but they said it must be something bad that kept him on the run. Some say he was a poet, that he'd stand upon a hill, that his voice could calm an angry crowd and make the waves stand still, that he spoke in many parables that few could understand, but the people sat for hours just to listen to this man. Some say he was a sorcerer, a man of mystery. He could walk upon the water, he could make the blind man see, that he conjured wine at weddings and did tricks with fish and bread, that he talked of being born again and raised people from the dead. Some say a politician who spoke of being free. He was followed by the masses on the shores of Galilee. He spoke out against corruption and he bowed to no decree. And they feared his strength and power, so they nailed him to a tree. Some say he was the Son of God, a man above all men, that he came to be a servant and to set us free from sin. And that's who I believe he was, because that's who I believe. And I think we should get ready, because it's time for us to leave. And this song kind of says it all. Everyone had and has an opinion about Jesus. But the bottom line is, when it comes to what we say, what you say, who do you say that he is? Who do we believe Jesus to be? Who do men say that I am? Jesus asked. What's the world saying about me? But most importantly, who do you say that I am? What do you say about me? You see, friends, the world had an opinion about Jesus. But we need to bring it right back to us. Because we may well have a go at what the world's saying and what the world's doing, but what are we doing to present Jesus? And what are we saying about him? So Peter responds again. when he said, who do you say that I am? And Peter responded and said, you are the Christ, the Messiah. Now, for him to say that, this was something that the people in Israel at that time were longing to hear, who the Messiah is. They believed that he would be there soon. They believed all the prophecies pointed to their generation and so on. And so for Peter to say, we believe you are the Christ, you are the Messiah, he was quite simply saying every prophecy in the Old Testament that are pointed to the Messiah, they point to you. That's who we believe you are. You are the Christ. You are the Son of the living God. It didn't just stop with you're the Christ, the Messiah. You are the Messiah. You are the Son of the living God, the eternal Son of the living God. And in response to that, Jesus said, blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, because flesh and blood has not revealed this unto you, but my Father in heaven, he has revealed this to you. And on this rock, I will build my church. He didn't say on Peter, the rock. Now we know that Peter's name was changed from Simon to Peter. Simon, the little stone, the little rock, that's what it meant. Peter, meaning the rock. But there was a deeper message behind Jesus changing the name Peter than just him now being called a rock within the church. This is not about Peter being the first pope of the Catholic Church, because he wasn't. If he was, then he's the only pope who's ever married. Because Peter had a mother-in-law. Remember, Jesus healed his mother-in-law? You can't have a mother-in-law unless you got a wife. And so when Jesus says, on this rock I will build my church, he wasn't talking about Peter. He was talking about the comment, the statement that Peter had just made. You're the Christ. You are the Son of the living God. And it's on this rock, on this statement, on this truth, that the church will be built. That Jesus Christ is the Messiah. That Jesus Christ is the fulfillment of every Old Testament prophecy. Everything from Genesis right through to the end of the Old Testament to Malachi all pointed to Jesus. He is the Messiah. He is the Son of the living God. And that's why Jesus could say that. That's why Jesus could say that no man comes to the Father but by me. That's why we can also declare that there's no other name under heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. That statement that Peter come off with, where Jesus says, Simon, you're blessed, because this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood. This is revelation from my Father in heaven. And it's on this rock that I will build my church. Jesus, the Christ, the Son of God. I want to tell you, friends, he's the one that we sing about in this place. He's the one that we preach about in this place. Sometimes people say, oh, when was the last time your pastor preached about hell, for example? Do you want us to preach about hell every week? Maybe people were absent that morning. There's a whole lot of stuff to get through when it comes to preaching and teaching and so on. And when it comes to who Jesus Christ is, and the statement of Jesus being the Son of God, we want to preach about Jesus and everything else around that. But he's central to every message that we preach. We sang songs today. Did you notice all those first songs all focused on Jesus? I mean, we were just singing about him, worshiping him. So the center of our worship, the center of our preaching and our teaching is Jesus. We sing about him in this place. We preach about him in this place. He's the one that we call on people to follow, no one else. We're not asking people to follow Jack or Jonathan McKee. We're not asking people to follow New Life City Church, to follow Elam as a denomination. I prefer to call it a movement rather than a denomination. But we're not asking people to follow a church. We're calling the people to follow Jesus. He's the one that we lift up in this place. He's the one that we encourage people to follow in this church. But I know only too well that when we encourage people to do that and people reach out and do their best to follow him, that if the devil doesn't get you one way, he's going to get you another way. And people face all sorts of challenges in life. Every person in this room, you've gone through your challenges. Some are still going through them right now. And I know that if the devil doesn't get you one way, he will certainly try to get you another way. Paul said we're not ignorant of the devil's devices. We're not ignorant of the devil's schemes. We know what he's about. I want to tell you, the leadership in this church are not ignorant either to the devil's schemes. We know when the devil comes against people, families, and even against the church, we understand it. We know the devil is out to destroy lives and relationships. We also know that there's a reason why the church has not yet been raptured. People are, you know what, we get excited when we talk about the rapture of the church. But there's a reason why the church has not yet been raptured. And we know what that reason is. We know why the church is still here on planet Earth. And I'll tell you why. Because the church still has a mission to fulfill. We're still on a mission. You see, if our mission was fulfilled, had been finished, we wouldn't be here. If the mission of the church globally was finished, the church wouldn't be here. And the reason the church is not raptured is because we're still on a mission. And we're on a mission to reach the world. We're on a mission to reach the world regardless of what the world thinks of us and regardless of what the world thinks of Christ. We're on a mission to let the world know who Jesus is. It has an opinion of him, but the world needs to know what the church really, truly thinks of him. And it's best coming from people who know him personally. People who can say, well, this is what I was, and this is how the Lord changed my life. This is what the Lord has done for me. This is what the Lord means to me. And we present him as we know him. We present him to our city, as we did yesterday in March for Jesus. And so again, I repeat, friends, we're not called to hate the world. We're not called to condemn it. We're not called to compete with it or to mimic it. We're called to reach the world, to reach it. Go into all the world and preach the gospel, Jesus said. And he also said, you shall be my witnesses. And then he said, in Jerusalem and Judea. Why did Jesus tell the disciples that they would start in Jerusalem? Because that's where they were. That was their starting point. Where we are right now is our starting point. Our starting point is not Jerusalem. It's not China. It's not Egypt. It's not India. Our starting point is where we are. So Jesus says, go into all the world and preach the gospel. You're going to be my witnesses to the nations, but you're going to start where you are. Starting where you are does not mean coming into a building once or twice a week and singing a few songs while checking your phone during the songs, or checking your phone during the preaching and letting on you're reading your Bible. Starting where you are doesn't just mean coming into a church service, and we believe in church services and people coming together. Starting where you are means reaching your family, reaching your community, our community, reaching our city and beyond. Starting where we are is where we are right now, and the people of influence are those that we can influence around us. And here's my question to you, but so what are we doing to reach the world? If we're to start where we are, what are you doing to reach the people in your sphere of influence? What are you doing to reach your family? What are you doing to reach your neighborhood? Are you a pest to your neighborhood or a witness to your neighborhood? What are you doing to reach the community around us? Are we taking from it or giving to it? What are we doing to reach our city? And beyond the city of Belfast, what are we doing to reach out because that's what we're called to do. And that's where we start. We start in our world, in your world, in my world. The world is a massive place in comparison to where we're at right now. But your world and my world is more reachable as far as we're concerned. I remember hearing someone talk about, it was a village or a town radio station, and the guy would go into his little studio, and around 7 o'clock in the morning, he'd be there for a few hours. And he had about 300 people living in the town, living in the village, a small place. But they could all tune into his radio station. Not sure they all ever did at any one time, but maybe there were a few dozen, maybe 100. And he would lock himself up in his little studio, and then he would turn on all the stuff and get it going. And then the first thing he would say when he would launch his morning program was, "Good morning, world." A few dozen people listening to him, but that was his world. That was his world. That was his focus. And sometimes we, as believers, individuals, and as a church, we need to focus on where God has called us, where God has placed us, and say, this is my world. This is my sphere of influence. What am I doing to reach it? How can I make Jesus known to a world that has a different opinion of him? How can I explain to my world, those in my world, who Jesus really is? We start where we are. And we start where we are no matter what hell throws at us and no matter what God allows through to us. Because you know as well as I do, hell throws some stuff and God allows some stuff to get through. But I believe that right now, as we consider who Jesus is and what he said, that as he's building his church, the gates of hell will not prevail against it. The gates is not some steel or iron structure. The gates of hell represent the place, the seat of authority and power. And so Jesus is saying that the powers and the authorities of hell will not be able to prevent the church from advancing and being built. And friends, that's the church that I want to belong to. I want to belong to a church that continually advancing no matter what the devil throws at it. I want to belong to a church where the people of God can rise up and bat off some of the stuff the devil throws at them. Yes, it hurts at times. We understand that, but we know that is so true. But if people can rise up and rather than give in, to fight on and to go to the next level. Jesus is building that kind of church, and we, I believe, are part of that church. And so I'm going to finish in a moment by saying that not only do we want or do we acknowledge that we belong to the church that Jesus is building, but there's good news because the door to that church is not yet closed. The good news is that Jesus is still building his church and he's still adding to his church. Such as should be saved. And you can be part of the church that Jesus Christ is building. If you're not already a follower of Jesus, you can be part of the church that Jesus is building. That's not by attending New Life City Church or by attending any other church, although that helps to get into church. But to become part of the church that Jesus Christ is building is to come to know him first and foremost as the master builder and as your own and personal Savior. To come to know him as the one who is the Christ, because there's only one true Messiah. The one who is the Son of God. To trust him. And the good news is that he's still reaching out to people. Thank God for those in Belfast City Centre yesterday who responded to that appeal and committed their lives to Christ. The journey just begins. And he's still reaching out to people in this place and other places across our city and beyond today. You see, the world has an opinion about Jesus, but it's our responsibility to make him known as a church. It's our responsibility, your responsibility, to make him known. Jesus says, follow me. To every person that has said, I'm following Jesus, and let me ask you a question. Where are you following him to? Where are you following him? You see, Jesus said that he came to seek and save the lost. That was his mission. That's still his mission. That's still what he's doing. He's seeking, he's saving the lost. So if you're following him, where are you following him to? What are you doing as you pursue him, as you follow him? If he's seeking and saving the lost, then he wants people to follow him that are going to do what he's doing. Seek and save the lost. And where are they? They're everywhere. I think it was preacher J. John, who talked about they're everywhere. They're not just in other parts of the world, they're in your world, they're in my world. And our responsibility is to make Jesus known to them. The world and the church has different opinions. The church knows Christ, knows who he is. The world is still in darkness, still in blindness. We're those who have come to the light and received that light. We can bring that light to the world. And I want to commend everyone who does that with your life daily and with how you communicate within your families, within your streets, within your communities, and how this church endeavors to do it. We don't always get it right, but at least we're doing our best. And at least we're getting out there. I mean, I was delighted yesterday to see so many of the new lifers. I mean, actually leading the parade, as it were. Come on, you can't take a shankle out in the tall. There's a parade. Let's get to the front. And there they were with their banners and their flags, and seeing Boneyard and BA behind that banner, and Sally moving along and waving the flag, and Alio waving the flag, and Sammy Anderson dancing. I saw you, mate. You were dancing down to City Hall. But that's what we're called. We're called to be light in the darkness. We're called to present Christ, but not just at events and not just in church services, but in our daily lives.